This is the Generation Report. If the magnitude of an event is measured by the response to it and by the lasting mark it leaves behind, then no event in modern American history can match the assassination of President Kennedy. There's obviously very little that can be said about the assassination which hasn't been written and documented and even sung about countless times. So rather than belabor the point with tired cliches about the symbolic meaning of November 22nd, I think it's worth hearing and considering the reactions of Americans on the day itself. Here is a selection of some of them.
Sir, how did you hear of the president's assassination?
Gentleman came into an office in which I was transacting business and mentioned it to us, and at the time I really wasn't able to believe it. I had to hear it myself, and unfortunately I did very shortly afterwards.
What is your feeling now?
I'm terribly shocked and saddened by it, and I would add angered by it.
Why angered?
I think it was a horrible, senseless thing, and I hope that the rest of the country feels the same way.
We are just never ready for this kind of thing in this country. We deplore the hotheads elsewhere in the world who change governments with guns, but we try to ignore the fact that now 4 of our own presidents have been cut down by assassins.
Sir, how do you feel?
Well, I feel shocked. I can hardly express my emotion, and I hope that the country will survive.
There is in this country, and there has been for too long, an ominous and sickening popularity of hatred.
Do you think that this assassination somehow reflects a climate of opinion in the country now?
I hope that it doesn't reflect a climate of opinion that is very prevalent in the country today. It certainly obviously reflects an opinion that some people hold.
Are you certain that it is right-wing radicals or people who oppose the president so desperately that they would do something like this, who committed this act?
Yes, sir. It could be no one else. Someone who did this must be mentally deranged. No clear-thinking human person would ever think of doing something like that.
Well, my first reaction was I was terribly shocked. I couldn't believe that it really happened. But I disagree with this man about it being a right-wing radical. It could have been communist, I think, probably something like that.
The president was in Dallas, which is, of course, part of the South. Do you think that somehow his racial policies are in any way connected with this?
That's the first thing I thought of when I heard about it, yes. I thought that probably some segregationist crackpot or something, just they had it all planned out.
And I make the same accusation against that whole area of making possible a climate of hatred. These are not decent men. I'm afraid I don't hold a brief. I don't believe in the Eastlands and the Russells of this age. They are as much to blame as anybody else. I'm not saying that they pointed a gun, but they didn't stop a gun from being pointed. And this day and age, I'm telling you, non-action is an act.
Well, I think this is something that everyone in the country shares the blame for.
This is the first time in my life I honestly say I'm not proud to be an American.
Well, it's just a complete shock, and I think it's just means a doom for our country.
We are sorry, deeply moved over this incident here in America. I'm sorry.
It is for us that one must grieve tonight. For a generation which has so refined its intellect that it can split atoms and communicate with the moon, and yet remains at the mercy of its own undisciplined emotions. If the world is one day destroyed, it'll come just like this, you know. It'll not be the H-bomb that did it. It'll be the greed or the fear or the hate that set it off.
While I've always bought Strauss and Howe's contention that the sense of high public optimism America experienced after World War II was never destined to continue indefinitely, I've also long felt that their theory explains the 1960s much better than it accounts for how November 22nd changed America. The reactions of Americans that day don't merely show a citizenry in a state of shock, anger, and sorrow over the loss of one man. They also show a lot of people who seem filled with self-recrimination, even doubts about the country itself. November 22nd, 1963, was the day a much more critical conception of America and of Americans than ever existed before began to cast its shadow, a shadow which is still with us. Will that shadow lift one day? I suppose it will, if enough people decide that it must. In closing, here is an excerpt from one of my favorite speeches of President Kennedy's, delivered at Amherst College 4 weeks before his death.
I look forward to a great future for America, a future in which our country will match its military strength with our moral restraint, its wealth with our wisdom, its power with our purpose. I look forward to an America which will not be afraid of grace and beauty, which will protect the beauty of our natural environment, which will preserve the great old American houses and squares and parks of our national past, and which will build handsome and balanced cities for our future. I look forward to an America which will reward achievement in the arts as we reward achievement in business or statecraft. I look forward to an America which will steadily raise the standards of artistic accomplishment and which will steadily enlarge cultural opportunities for all of our citizens. And I look forward to an America which commands respect throughout the world, not only for its strength, but for its civilization as well. And I look forward to a world which will be safe, not only for democracy and diversity, but also for personal distinction.
Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy this series. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. I'm Paul Zimi Finn. May God bless America.